All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are live here on episode number 25 on episode number 25 of Changemakers. Pretty excited for today's guest. I love having people that are actually creating change in their communities, that have taken action, taken the bull by the horns, and actually doing something that they're passionate about in order to create change. This person, this young man, this gentleman that we're about to have on is doing more than that. He has taken the idea of creating change and he has essentially put that on steroids. And I cannot wait to hear his story a little bit more. I'm sure some of you guys have heard him on Make America Think Again with Sunni. He's been on Fox and Friends. He was booted because of apparently a gigantic war happening in the Middle East this morning in Israel on CNN, but he will be back on that as well. And I can't be more excited for this interview and for this guest. So we've got a lot of people that started to tune in. Do us a favor, hit the like button, start making comments. You guys are the way that we break the Facebook algorithm. So please start hitting that like button, make the comments. Everybody, we've got almost 40 people watching right now, and I know that's going to grow. The best way to help us out is by hitting the thumbs up or hearts as we speak. So let's go ahead and get the show started. It's 30 seconds until showtime. What's going on, everybody? It is Anthony Michael Russo from hashtag BetheChange. Thank you guys for joining us. I see a lot of you guys making comments in the box. Share is right. Again, as everybody knows, it's been watching Truth Will Set You Free last night and some of the other lives. Apparently, I said some word related to the V word with the shot and the thing, and it had a little bit of an effect. And I don't, all of a sudden we got a little shadow ban going on. And this is an episode that I want everybody to see. This is a big deal. This is one of those times where we get inspired by somebody that's almost, I hate to say this, almost, not even, just barely half my age, which means A, I'm getting old, and second, he's done a lot in his 21 years. We've got King Randall coming up on this episode, so please go ahead and share this out there. Hit the like button. Before we get started, right before I bring him on, I'm going to have to do a countdown from 3, 2, 1, and I want everyone to hit that share button. The great part about this, you don't have to worry about people getting mad about politics. This isn't Truth Will Set You Free. It's not blunt force logic. It's just literally a conversation on people that are creating a ripple effect in the world around them and in their community and doing great things and inspiring others to do great things as well. As always, if you would like to support anything that we do on these shows, I'm going to go and throw this on the bottom ticker. We've got Venmo and Cash App, but we truly prefer Patreons because with Patreons, you guys get Motivational Mondays. You get a little bit extra. You're also going to have free access to this major event that I know a lot of you guys have heard about already, Operation Take Back America, May 22nd and 23rd. We're trying to get King Randall to come to it, but he is busy on that one. So for number 2, he is going to hopefully help us out. We'll give him a little bit more time to plan. So Operation Take Back America, May 22nd and 23rd. You guys can see the links on some of our pages, whether it's Primetime Patriots or BetheChange. Make sure you join us for that. Last thing I'm going to say before we get the party started, as you guys know, we've got a whole bunch of cool new stuff at the store, on our store. So new designs, new stuff, action over awareness. We've got I'm Awake, Not Woke. We have in America, we can agree to disagree, regular Be the Change stuff. And if you want to get a little bit more racy, we've got the Be the Effing Change shirts. Because, sometimes who likes to party? And what made you smile today as well. The reason I'm showing this right now is the same that Primetime Patriots did on theirs. Any t-shirts purchased in the next 24 hours. So until tomorrow night, the proceeds on that will be going to the X School for Boys, which King Randall is going to talk about. So any sales go into that. Again, all you got to do is go to hashtag BetheChange.com/shop. You can look at it there, and any of these videos that you see will also be available on podcasts, and you can do /podcast on hashtag BetheChange. You'll find it there. But with no further ado, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm going to do one last call for shares. We've got a decent amount of people watching, but I I believe as though King Randall deserves more. So on the count of 3, I want everybody to hit the like button and specifically hit that share button on their screen so more people can see it. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Share it out there, guys. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I am very excited to introduce to you on today's episode of Changemakers, somebody creating quite the ripple in his community and the world just based on the inspiration he is providing. I'm going to let him give, I've got a long bio on him, but it's not worth it because I want him to actually explain a little bit more about himself and I want him to have the floor. So ladies and gentlemen, King Randall. What's going on, my man?
Hey, what's going on? I'm good, man. How are you?
Doing fantastic. So you were supposed to be, before we go into exactly who you are, you were supposed to be on CNN this morning. What happened?
Yeah, well, Israel, they over there bombing each other and stuff, so we had to wait on that. But yeah, they had breaking news, and they didn't want what's happening in Israel to kind of like overshadow the work that we're doing. So they want to bring me on a separate segment to make sure that we're getting all the light that we can.
So if anybody, your audio is great. Your video might be a little bit choppy. So if anybody's out there wondering, you're traveling right now, so you're in a hotel. That's why you might not see you moving too much, but your audio is perfect, so we're all good. Where are you at right now? Where are you traveling through? What do you got going on?
Well, I'm in Atlanta, Georgia right now, and I'll be traveling to Savannah, Georgia this weekend. So right now I'm just kind of doing a lot of moving around for the boys. I've kind of taken a break as far as like working with the boys at the moment because I've been working with them 2 years straight, and right now it's time for me to do a lot of promotion. So that way we can keep the program free for the children. So on June 14th, we'll actually be doing a summer program where we'll be teaching the boys how to build 2 small houses. So right now we want to make sure that, I'm doing a lot of promotion and we're actually, moving the donations around, et cetera, to make sure that we're able to take care of these children for free. So that way our parents, in Albany don't have to pay for these things because we have a very extremely high poverty rate and the children that need it are the ones who can't afford it. So right now I'm just doing a lot of promotion and we still do our book club every Tuesdays. But right now I'm just kind of moving around doing a lot of promotion.
So talking about what you're doing with the group, let's go ahead and go back and tell everybody a little bit about yourself. If you're 21 years old, you've created the X School for Boys. Talk about everything about your life that got you to here and what inspired you to do what you're doing right now.
Absolutely. Well, I was 19 years old when I began the program. And when I started the program because where I live in Albany, we were at one point the 4th poorest city in the whole United States. And then also we were at one point the murder capital of the United States. So it was really heartbreaking for me to see a lot of my classmates being killed that I graduated with, some of them going to jail, et cetera, getting into drug infested neighborhoods, et cetera, and selling drugs or whatever. But we were having all these different meetings. Every time something happens in our community, everybody wants to have a meeting. And it kind of got on my nerves because nobody wanted to go out and actually do anything for the youth in our communities. So what I decided to do was I decided to start an organization where I started with children. I started doing field trips with them when I was 19. I started doing field trips, moving, taking them to Atlanta and to Montgomery, Birmingham, things like that, taking them to see like different things that people went through for them to be able to get a good education and things like that. But to see the young men actually asking questions, actually wanting to get out of their conditions, it kind of moved me to want to work with them more because I'm like, this is where change is going to happen if we train our replacements. These children actually want to, do something with their lives. So I started doing workshops. I started teaching them how to work on cars. I did an oil change workshop to begin with. I took 20 boys and they all learned how to change oil at my uncle's house. We used his, patio in his garage area, and we taught 20 boys how to change oil. They all got certificates and things like that. But for those boys who had never seen or gotten a certificate for anything, because they may not be academically inclined, they felt good about themselves. And to hear the parents calling me and saying, they want to put a certificate on the wall and things like that because they're confident in them. They don't feel like a failure anymore. So fast forward, I started doing brake change workshops and teaching them how to change alternators. Then we started moving and working on houses, teaching how to paint houses, and we were changing light fixtures, doing sheetrock, flooring. You name it. We were doing many different things, and I was teaching the boys. And then while I was doing that, I lost my job. And so that kind of pushed me to do what I really wanted to do, which was start a summer camp that summer of 2019. So I started a summer camp. I made a flyer on my phone, and I was wondering if parents were going to be skeptical because I was running it out of my house. But I made a flyer on my phone, and I basically told, the parents everything that I'd be offering, teaching them how to work on cars, work on houses, how to grow their own food, etc. But I had 20 parents leading this 19-year-old kid to teach their boys how to be men for that summer. And the whole summer we did everything. In my dining room area, I had made some little tables around in a U in my dining room. I had made a small little dry erase board. I put it on the wall, and we made it happen. I taught every day. We watched different historical movies. We went on different field trips. I taught them how to change toilets and change oil, brakes, spark plugs, alternators, water pumps. They grew squash and watermelons during the summer. We did everything you could possibly think of during that summer. And every year on the summer camp, I graduate the boys from it on my birthday, July 26th. So they graduate. That's my birthday present to myself. So after that, I started a book club because I noticed 12 out of the 20 boys couldn't read. That was an issue for me because I'm just saying, how are you kids, in school? You guys are, doing all of this stuff. You guys are in different grades, but you can't read or write. How is that even possible? Who's passing you guys through school? And I mean, literally couldn't read or write at all. That was an issue for me. And I'm just like, well, we keep wondering why crime and stuff is so high and why these children's grades are so horrible. Look, their literacy rates are trash. So I started a book club. I started teaching them how to read. We have an 86% reading comprehension right now. And the children are actually learning how to read. During the book club, we did vocabulary words. We do, this is every Tuesday now. We do vocabulary words. We read a chapter a week in a book of our choosing. The first book we ever read was Letters to a Young Brother by Hill Harper. And right now we're reading Booker T. Washington's Up from Slavery. So it's a really good book that the children are reading. And every week you do spelling tests. We do the definitions of new words. I kind of force them to, learn these different things because these things are extremely important in regards to their literacy. So fast forward from book club, 2020 came, and then
hey, King, hold on, King. I got to ask you, there was a great question in the box. So all these different trades that you were teaching them, how did you learn how to do all the car work? How did all this come from? How did King Randall not just know how to teach it, but how did you know how to change oil and do all these different things and all these basic life skills that most people don't even have anymore?
Yeah, my former stepfather taught me just about everything I know in regards to building things. When I grew up, we built everything that we had outside. We built all of our own sheds. We had a dog kennel. We built all of our dog houses. We used to have rabbits. We built our rabbit pens, chicken pens, goat pens, everything we built by hand. We made our washroom in the house into a bedroom, and we moved the washroom outside. We ran pipes under the ground, literally from the water hose. He taught me how to, cut the pipes and turn it into we made a whole little water flow system all the way outside, and made the water go to another shed that we built and turned it into a washroom. These are nice sheds. We didn't build anything. We had roofing on it, windows, lights in it, etc. All this we did on our own. We didn't call any electricians, no plumbers or anything. We did all this by hand. We grew our own food. Everything we wanted to eat every day, we went outside and picked it. If we wanted to eat, something during the day, we go outside and pick some greens and pick some vegetables, etc. We had all types of fruit trees. This is stuff that I did growing up, keeping and taking care of animals. But I kind of thought that a lot of men already knew these things, or boys in particular, because I'm just I've been learning this growing up. I'm thinking kids in the neighborhood, we all know this stuff. But they didn't. So I thought, it was important to teach these boys. Plus some of the things that I didn't know that he taught me how to do, I learned on YouTube. Got on YouTube and learned how to do it. And I just put my mind to it and wanted to learn. And I always tell my boys, there's nothing, in 2021 that you can say that you don't know how to do when there's things like YouTube that'll show you how to do it. So I don't give them that excuse anymore. But that's kind of where I learned all these different skill traits.
My girlfriend just said I need to go to this school because apparently some of these manly qualities. She said, "Babe, can you go to this school?" I'm like, I don't know, this whole oil change thing. That sounds fantastic. Building a shed, that sounds great. I don't know. It's awesome.
Yeah, I learned how to be a handyman growing up. Yes, sir.
She always has me take her shopping. That's I was a single parent mom as a kid, so it's like my manly skills are very diminished.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. God. That's understood.
So, all right, let's go back. So let's go to 2020. So what happened in 2020?
Well, 2020, COVID happened, and I had to kind of put everything on pause because, obviously I didn't know what was going on with the virus stuff, and there was this big craze about it. I didn't know what was going on, so I was like, well, we can't do the in-person stuff because I don't know what's going on. So I put everything on pause, but parents were still calling, asking me to do stuff with the boys because they were kind of getting back into, their old lifestyles and things like that. But I'm just like, what am I supposed to do? I'm not sure what you want me to do, at this time, and the virus is going on, etc. But I told the parents, I was like, well, if I do something for the summer, these children are going to have to come live at my house because I need to monitor what they're doing, and things like that. And the parents were like, okay. So I took 7 boys. I bought some bunk beds. I put them in my living room, and we made it happen. I had 7 boys come live with me for the entire summer of 2020. They came to live with me. We made it happen. We went and worked on a farm every day. We also found an apartment complex that some contractors were working on. And the contractors, allowed the boys to come in every day, and they taught them how to do sheetrock and, installing carpet and doing the popcorn ceilings and all that stuff. The boys learned like a plethora of things during the time of 2020 or that summer. Then I also started working with children from the juvenile court system. Because a lot of children, we don't have any rehab programs where I live in Albany, Georgia at all. Well, in Southwest Georgia, period, for young men that are going to juvenile justice system and, going to jail, but they don't have anything for them when they get out. It's kind of like they're going in and coming right back because there's no help for them at all. And I'm the only program in Southwest Georgia just dedicated to making sure children don't go back to jail. So fast forward from there, I started working with children from juvenile court system. I started taking temporary custody of them. And I just got finished with my last child. I had 2 children at one time I had temporary custody of, and they were making significant changes, and these children have been taken off of their probation that they were on. One of them had an armed robbery charge, and one of them had a grand theft auto charge. But these are the best kids you'll ever meet. If not, one of them is like the second best child I've ever had in the program. And these children just need some consistency in their lives and some love. But that's what happened with those children. And during that time of the summer, people started asking me to start posting the things that we were doing on social media, more actively, because I was posting, but I wasn't really posting all the time. So people were saying you need to make a Twitter account and things like that. So I made different social media accounts and I started posting these things online. And one day the boys were doing sheetrock at the apartment complexes, and I posted the pictures on Twitter. And these tweets, they went mini viral, and people were like, you have to make a GoFundMe account, etc. And I was like, all right, because I had already told the boys previously that I wanted to open a school one day. I was like, I don't know how we're gonna do it, but we're gonna have some big boy faith and we're gonna make it happen. So fast forward, people started donating on our GoFundMe, and we raised $20,000 the first week of our GoFundMe being up. And so I started building shopping because I was just like, well, we got a down payment for something. And I was thinking about a little small storefront school, to start out with or something like that. But people kept donating, and so we started looking at bigger buildings. And I was just like, well, we'll look at something else. So we finally found this building on Dawson Road where I live in Albany, Georgia. And it was an old Social Security office in the old Red Cross building. And so while we were looking at this building, it had a lot of work to do to it, tons of work. However, we, had our mind set on this building. Didn't have a lot of land. It was 15,000 square feet and had a warehouse in the back, but we were going to make it happen with what we had because that was the building that we saw and that we wanted, because we didn't see any other buildings that were going to kind of be exactly what we needed. So we were, pushing down on that building. We made promotional videos about it, etc. But things fell through. Things didn't happen like we wanted them to, and then we had to cancel on that building. But somebody reached out to me and was like, did you reach out to the school superintendent? And I was just like, I didn't even think about that because the school superintendent and I were really good friends, and they were good with the program because the boys have to give excuses sometimes to do their different field trips with me, etc. So we fast forward through there, and I called him and asked if they have any old buildings. And he says, we have 3 buildings up for demolition. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I called him, and he was like, we can set up a tour for one of them. So I went and toured this school location. It's an old elementary school, 36,000 square feet, 25 classrooms, 11 acres, cafeteria, library, the whole 9 except the basketball gym. And so I was like, well, this is the location that we want. It's on the side of town where the children they need us the most. It's right by the project areas. It's right where these children don't have any outlets or anything over there. So this is perfect. We want to, go ahead and push forward with this building. And also a cool story about this building. They had just stopped using it about 2 years ago. But when I was younger, and I won a spelling bee in the 4th grade in elementary school. And of course, when you win your spelling bee, you have to go to the county bee. So our county bee was held at this school location. And of course, I lost. I spelled ratio wrong. So when I got to the cafeteria, I recognized where I was because I always hated that building every time we had to go back because they turned it into this building they use for getting our high school transcripts and things like that. So I go back in this cafeteria and I look, I'm like, this is the building, this is the cafeteria I lost it in. I spelled ratio wrong. So I was like, I definitely got to get this location now because that's revenge for me. So we went after that location and we made a deal with our local school system to be able to acquire this building. And right now we're still working out logistics with them with the school location, of course. But we have a deal in principle and we're just working out the kinks. But that's our new school location that we plan to open this fall. And then right now, I just purchased 40 acres of land in the city of Albany on the south side. Over there, it's a food desert. There's no grocery store there. We plan to do wilderness training there with the boys to teach them how to survive in the wild. We also plan to teach them how to grow their own food and also put a fresh food market on that side of town, obviously, because there's no grocery store, and want to make sure we're able to feed our community with the food that we're growing. So we'll be doing seasonal vegetables and things like that for our community, because that's something that we need. That's something we need in our community. But all that to say, it's something that nobody helped us with. We didn't ask any politicians to help us. We didn't ask any politicians to help us buy any land. We didn't go beg anybody to open a grocery store for us and do any protests and none of that stuff. We just decided to go do it for ourselves. And if I'm 21 and the youngest kid in my program is 11, if we can go do it, anybody can go do it, especially coming from the fourth poorest city in the whole United States. So I believe that should be inspiration to all people to go do something for their communities. But that's kind of the story of me and what the X of Boys is all about.
I love it. So the great part is I talk a lot about overcoming failure and the power of failure. So all of this was truly inspired by you losing a job. You lost a job and you knew that you wanted to do more, and then it ended up getting to a point where one of the buildings that you guys are having the school in is where a place where you failed at something, and now you get to have kind of positive retribution that gets you to do what you're doing. And I loved your video when you talked about taking your 40 acres of land, and there's such a level of self-responsibility. The last question I have about how you got here is, how did you get the name The X for Boys School?
Absolutely. The X for Boys names come from, the school will be called the Life Preparatory School for Boys. The organization is called the X for Boys. The X for Boys, X means unknown. Our motto is let us make men. Just like in any math problem, you have to solve for X because X is unknown. And so it's the X for Boys. So we're teaching boys how to be men.
I love it. It's perfect. I didn't know if it had a Malcolm X tie or not, because I know I've heard you speak about Malcolm X, and I know very highly respected in what you do and what you talk about. And I'll admit my ignorance 4 or 5 years ago, when I thought of Malcolm X, I grouped him in with Louis Farrakhan. I grouped him in with the negative side of the Black Panthers, not the positive side of how it started. And then I started actually doing my own research, and I started learning. And Malcolm X was somebody that drastically changed who he was later in life, which is probably why he was killed so young. What's your take on Malcolm X? And I've heard you talk about it. I like the way that you explain kind of how it relates to the way you look at politics, the way you look at the world. What's your take on the old Malcolm X?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I love every part of Malcolm, from his starting to his ending, from Malcolm Red, the pimp, to all the way to the incomparable Malcolm, because all of it was a journey. And he spoke, a lots of truth, even when he was with the NOI. He taught a lot of truth, as well as some things that may not have been the truth. However, all of it developed who he was, especially in regards to politics and things like that. Talking about both parties, one party's biting you with a smile, the other one's biting you with a growl. Either way, you're still being bitten. But he was all about personal responsibility. And that's kind of what he was talking about just all the time. It was always personal responsibility. Most people always try to reduce Malcolm X down to violence and, he was fight back this and fight back. I'm like, that's really not what he was about. There are no pictures or video of Malcolm fighting or hurting anybody. And that's even with, people who he was with at that time. They weren't about that lifestyle. I mean, they may have said fight back sometime, but they never were the aggressor. They never aggressed anybody. And that's something we do have to, take into consideration. But they were never fighters. All they talked about was personal responsibility. Let's stop asking the white man for everything. Let's go do something for ourselves in our community. Let's open our own schools. Let's stop begging to go where he is, etc. And we can do something for ourselves. And maybe once we respect ourselves, they'll respect us, instead of trying to beg for acceptance from people that don't want to accept us. So we change the mind of ourselves instead of change the mind of other people. But right now, all of our politics is centered around trying to change everybody else's mind and make everybody else feel a way about us, when we should just feel good about ourselves and go do something in our community. Because I could care less about anybody's acceptance. I don't care if anybody gives me an award. I don't care if anybody doesn't include me in something, because I'm going to include myself in anything that I create. because I'll make my own table. I don't eat anybody else's food. So I definitely think that's one of the most extremely important things that Malcolm taught. We can go do it for ourselves. We don't need anybody else to go do anything for us, especially when we have a economy of $1.1 trillion today. I don't even see how we even blame anybody else for anything when we simply can't use our money and put it together and spend it. Because if immigrants can come here with nickels and dimes and no education, come here and set up stores and develop industries and come in our neighborhoods, and they'll start off in a van and end up in a BMW and all that stuff, you guys can do it too. So if immigrants can come here and do it, why can't we? And we live here, so those are things I think about, but hey, it is what it is.
It's like the chicken and the egg philosophy. If you look at it, everybody is waiting for somebody to help them. Whereas if everybody was either both chicken and chicken or both egg and egg, and everybody was coming at the exact same time to try to actually make things better, that's when change happens. So really the only person that's going to start igniting that is the person doing. When I started BetheChange, my whole concept, it was 5 years ago now almost, was when the police shooting happened in Dallas, Texas. And I started looking at the world around me, and I'm like, man, there's a lot of people yelling and not actually taking action. We have a craze of awareness and activism without doing anything. So what you're doing is truly the inspiration for what my thought process was. What I said was, why don't we try to get people that can become leaders in their own communities and actually do something? Because that police shooting, if you remember it was an anti-police protest that police were protecting the protesters, and then they were the ones that got killed. 5 police officers got killed by a sniper or whatever actually happened, who actually knows. And it's like, we're just missing this isn't creating any progress. What is creating progress is creating a school for young men. When all these people that are angry about what's going on, instead of complaining and yelling, they could actually even if they don't have time, they could donate to organizations like yours. And that would actually create way more change than the hour a day they spend on Facebook talking about how bad the government is,
Right. Absolutely. I definitely believe, we only going to get change if we change it ourselves. And that's kind of what I believe. I have this philosophy called the do something philosophy, meaning it doesn't have to be anything major, doesn't have to be a gigantic, extravagant program or anything like that. It could be something simple as go give that homeless person $1 that you always tell no every day, or go find a family to feed once a week, or go ask somebody, this kid you see walking into school back and forth every week, go talk to his parents and ask, can you take him to school, and you mentor him every day and go buy him something to eat, just any small thing. If everybody dedicated themselves to doing at least one thing positive every day, we'd be in a whole nother place.
100%. We had a show on Truth Will Set You Free. Man, what was it? It was about 3 weeks ago or so, where we had 4 people that were more from the left, and we had 3 people from the right talking about how to fix the black community, and it was a very good discussion, but there were some contentious points. And it's funny that right after that I saw your video about taking your 40 acres, because there was one woman that was successful in her own right and pretty happy with life, yet she still was under the belief system that she was going to be receiving and getting 40 acres and a mule, and she deserved it and all this stuff. And you know what? I understand history. I understand the promises that were broken, but what good is it going to do to sit around and wait?
Absolutely. I'm in a position where if we get it, cool. If we don't, it doesn't change anything. I still got work to do.
100%. And I love the video, the way you were just like, I took my damn 40 acres. We all have the opportunity. And I think when people hear somebody like me, they look at me, they're like, oh, you're a white dude and you probably have had everything, and not understanding any of my background, which is so far from it. When I say everybody has the opportunity, it sounds different than when you say it, because people look at me like that's unfair for you to say. But ultimately, I understand that some people are going to have it harder. Whether race is involved, sometimes it is, absolutely. A lot of it has to do with socioeconomic. A lot of it has to do with things that people don't see. People don't know that I had a disabled father. People don't know what somebody's story is across the street on why they've had a rough upbringing. But ultimately, like you said, everybody has the opportunity and potential to do something for themselves. And it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy for anyone, white, black, purple, brown, Hispanic, it doesn't matter. It's not going to be easy, but you can still do it. And you are proof. At the age of 21, you're already doing not just for yourself, but for the community around you. And I find you inspirational as all hell. So I wanted you to know that.
I appreciate it. Yes, sir. Thank you.
So who inspired you? I know you said you had a former stepdad that was great. What have been your inspirations over time that kind of got you to this point?
I'll definitely say, well, it's not more of like it's not an inspiration, I'll say, but just seeing the things that were happening in my community are what inspired me to do, what I do, because everybody's under the impression that Albany has like this black cloud over it. Even Dr. King came to Albany and failed. He said he'd never return because of the mindset of the people. Where people in Albany live. I mean, that's where we are. To this day, the mindset is still the same. But I believe one of the biggest mistakes that our civil rights leaders made at the time was not training any replacements to come after them. And so that's what I believe in doing now. So Albany is not a small city at all. It actually has potential to be a nice big city with big buildings and things like that. But you get this country town, with barely anything thriving. It's super high poverty rate, extremely low household income. The mall's like a flea market. Just is in shambles. The old leadership won't leave. It's just nonsense. But I believe if we change, the children and teach them a different route than their parents went, I believe Albany could change in 5 to 10 years. We could go buy buildings and create resources and build skyscrapers and just change our city into something that it should have been a long time ago. But that's where we are. But I believe we can make it happen. And I tell the boys all the time, we can make so much happen right now. We're so young. Imagining what we'll be doing in 10 years, in the city of Albany, as long as we keep our heads on straight and keep pushing. But I definitely believe my inspiration comes from those young men who need to see, possible, because children don't get to see possible, especially where we live. These children hadn't even been outside of the city. There are many children in Albany, Georgia, that have never left the city. I know kids 17, 18 years old have never even been 10 minutes away. And that's extremely important to know, because I travel to Atlanta all the time. Just a 2-hour drive, but I come here for business a lot. My management team is here, etc. But when I take some of the kids here, they're taking pictures of buildings and stuff. They've never seen that skyscrapers are big, or I took them to the beach and they get to see the ocean is big and blue. Like, they don't get to see things. Even just going to like little restaurants in town, like we got Waffle House and Play or something like that, and I go take them to Waffle House. I've never been here before. Or we go to Chick-fil-A. Oh, I never had this before. I'm like, you live here. Like, you hadn't had Zaxby's or just, nothing. It's crazy, and dealing with that. So I have to look and just be like, you know what? Just gotta keep pushing. And that's what inspires me. Like, even one time I went to pick up a new kid, and what did he do? He got in my truck. And in my truck, I had a full gas tank, and he said, "Man, I never seen a full gas tank before." My mom always put like $10 in the car, But it makes you be grateful for what you have, because these children go through so much, and that's why I don't really get so upset sometimes, like at their behavior issues and things like that, because you never know like what's going on. I had one kid, his grandma didn't want to see him eat at night, so he had to sneak eat food, and he had got in trouble because he stole her car to go get some food because he was hungry and she didn't want to see him eat. So I used to put food in his backpack, whenever he'd leave my house so he could go eat at home. It's just little stupid stuff like that. You never know what's going on with these children. But
you don't.
I have so many stories. Molestation, you name it.
Yeah, and that's even more prevalent in some of these lower socioeconomic groups, and people realize it doesn't matter the race, and even in those it's talked about less. That's the crazy part. And like what you said with showing them things just outside of their county, I think a lot of what trouble ensues and youth that really decide to all of a sudden not have a dream, they don't know what they want to do with their future, it's because they haven't seen other options, and kind of like what I said, people don't know anybody's background, they don't understand that. I although I grew up pretty damn poor, I did have the ability where I had wealthy cousins off to the side, and they were really good people. So a lot of people that are poor think there's nothing outside of the community. There's nothing outside of them. So why would they try? They don't even know what an ocean looks like. They don't know what a different big city looks like. Why would you care? And then the fact that you're showing them that is huge. I had the benefit of, although being poor, I didn't have that stigma that money sucks. A lot of times poor people they get essentially like money is the root of all evils. That's such a terrible statement to tell anybody. Like, yeah, money has some negatives if
Right.
it's in the wrong hands, but seeing
It's
good
love.
people that have
People always mess it up on purpose.
exactly.
It's the love of
But
money,
yeah,
not money itself.
yeah, exactly, and it's spot on. It's not. It's the people. It's the people, not the money. And the fact that I could see stuff outside of that, and that's what you're doing with these kids. It allowed me to not have this stigma like money sucks. I had this stigma that I'm going to work hard. I'm going to be like these people. I'm going to help other people. I'm going to employ other people, and it's inspirational. And that's what you're doing for these kids. So now I have a harder question for you, because I saw it earlier in the comment
What's
box.
going
It's
on?
in my notes, but it was in my notes. So with what you're doing on very limited resources, you look at what's done, what's been done with Black Lives Matter as an organization, and all the money that's poured into them, and not seeing anything going back into the community. What is your opinion on Black Lives Matter?
I don't have one. I mean, we see these organizations happen in the black community all the time. They come, take all your money, and then dip. I mean, that's just something I'm used to. I don't really have an opinion on it. I tell people all the time, Malcolm taught us, if mainstream media is pushing anything, you need to be looking in the opposite direction. Malcolm taught us that he who controls the media controls the people. So I don't subscribe to anything that I see on mainstream media. I question everything I see on TV. So as soon as I see mainstream media pushing something, I know it's really against what's in our best interest every time, and it always comes out. Every time. This whole media campaign against Donald Trump, the whole media campaign with Black Lives Matter, the whole media campaign against police, all that stuff, it all comes out after a while. When the statistics start showing up and people start being outed, etc., then people want to see the light. But nobody ever wants to say that they're wrong. They just always want to be right. So they'll find a new way to be right. So, I just don't have an opinion on that. It is what it is. It is what it is.
See, in my head, I started doing the math. So you took $20,000 of a GoFundMe, and you're creating this ripple in your own community, whether it's 7 kids in 2020 or whether it's the 20 kids or what you're growing into. And I'm going to ask you later, what the future plans are. But you're doing this with such a limited amount of money. In my head, I think of if somebody gave you $100 million in donations to actually do something, you could literally change the world with the way that you have intelligently put yourself in this position, and to actually have a heart and a head that helps. And I just that's what got thinking in my head is what would you do with $100 million?
I don't know where to begin because with buying the land and getting the school and stuff like that. I mean, just with the limited amount of money that we have, if we had $100 million, Jesus, I'd turn our whole city into some type of new place, just anything. I don't even know. Like, I would have to sit down and strategize it, break it down by year, just because I want to actually see something happen, because I don't see the point in just getting a whole bunch of fancy stuff and then what? Okay, after I get all the fancy stuff and I get used to it, then what? I want to see all these children thrive. I want to see my grandchildren thrive, my great-grandchildren, and other children's great-grandchildren. I want to see all these children thrive. That's my biggest thing, make sure the children, live in a different way and get things back to how they used to be in our communities when marriage rates were up and, the families were together and things like that. So there's no telling, of course, I definitely open more schools. That's a given. I'd be building all types of extravagant institutions that the children could attend for free, just all types of stuff, academies for parents, everything. Just, it would be something crazy, but yeah, I don't know what I would do with them 100 million. But it would be something cool.
What's funny is I haven't said this in a long time. I said this because a lot of people looked at Trump when he had his "Make America Great Again," and they're like, "That's a racist statement. That's a dog whistle. It was never great for Black people." And I actually what's that? Say it again.
That's cap. We say that's a word that means people be lying. Cap.
Yeah. So I started thinking about it though, and I'm like, you know what? I can explain this in a way that I think actually makes sense for it not to be racist. You look back and you say, okay, when I say "Make America Great Again," I'm thinking 50s and 60s, and I'm not thinking about the racist side of America. I'm thinking about the side of America that it didn't matter. Segregation was there, absolutely, but the family units. Everybody respected their elders. Family was still together. Family was still in the home, whether it was Black or white or Hispanic. There were cohesive families, whether or not the husband and wife were upset with each other. Who knows? But the actual families, people respected their elders. They respected their community. They even, unfortunately, even though police were not as good then as they are now, they still respected their authority, and it was just a safer place. Take away the racist side. I'm like, if you could find a way to put that belief system in a bottle and bring it to the modern era in 2021, where, to me, most of the racist history of our country is gone, that's something powerful. That's the great again that I see, and I'm like, God, we have so much potential, but we just think that we're in this shithole right now, for better words.
Yeah, but people always, try to say that black people never had we did have a good time. We had, even though racism was here and it was segregated, we had all of our own stores. Black people were rich. We had nice cars, had nice homes, etc. Family structures were together. And a photo shoot I'm doing this weekend is actually going to be based off of how in the 20s and 30s, when black people, they owned clubs and everything. We owned stuff, like we were doing fine. Of course racism was there, but we didn't care because we had all our own stuff. But as soon as the moment came where we had to go and we could go and be with the white people now, and we can go sit in the same toilet with white people and all that stuff, then we decided to let go of all of our stuff because everything white was better. That's when self-hate came in, and that's where mainstream media and movies, etc., perpetuate this idea that white was better. So we closed all of our own stores. We closed this because we can go shop with white people now. We can go to the white people store now, and everything black was looked at as down, just like we do nowadays. Even with the Oscars and stuff like that, they're like, oh, the Oscars are so white, they won't have any black people get any awards and etc. I'm just like, okay, well, we have the NAACP Image Awards. Why don't we look at our own awards that high? Because everything white is better. We have this collective self-hate, and we believe that white people are superior. I keep telling people that. I said, the more you scream white supremacy, the more you're gonna make yourself believe that white people are superior to you. I don't think anybody white superior to me. I don't need your award. I don't care for your award. It is what it is. If I know I'm better, I know I'm better. It is what it is.
Yeah.
So, but that's where I am. But we just want to be accepted so bad. I don't care to be accepted. I care about accepting myself, and moving myself forward and personal responsibility. That's what I care about. I don't care about, all that stuff, because what that does is make me feel like I'm inferior and I need the approval of white people for me to be considered a great actor, or I need approval from white people to be considered a great basketball player. I don't need that approval. If I know I'm good, I know I'm good. And if we do believe there's racism in the workplace or in hospitals, create your own clinics. If there's racism in the Oscars, create your own Oscars. If there's racism in the schools, create your own schools. I mean, if we believe that the system is racist, create your own system. It's not, do it, but again, everybody wants to keep trying to beg to eat at a table that's not yours. You can't make nobody cook something that they don't want to cook at their table, so you got to create your own table. That's just how I think.
So you bring up an interesting question, because I agree with essentially everything you said, but there is this point where it's like, where does segregation start and where does kind of hate begin, or where does it, where it's kind of a fine line. And I agree with pretty much everything you said. It's like, if white people, black people, if all the races can coexist in something, great. And if it's something that their communities just don't do the same way, who cares? Great, go do your different things. But there's one thing to me. I read this is happening right now. It's either in Washington or Oregon, where one school district is breaking apart and doing a black prom and a black graduation.
Okay.
What would be your opinion beyond that?
I would have to understand why they're doing that.
It's so they said their purpose is essentially reclaiming the ability for them to have their own. So it's kind of like what you're saying, but it's essentially
that's not the same.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that's not the same. What I'm saying is, if a collective of people believe that a system is bothering them, I don't think it's in the best interest of those people to go beg the same system that they claim doesn't like them to do something for them. Why would I beg somebody to feed me that doesn't like me? I'm going to assume they're going to poison my food. So I'm just going to go cook my own food over here. If somebody wants to, it's like me with the school. Of course, we believe that the system is holding our children down in the school system. Okay, cool. I'm going to create my own school. Not saying that it's only for black children. It's for all boys to come to the school. However, it's owned by me. or whatever. It's not owned by the system, you know. So those are things that I'm talking about. Not necessarily saying segregation. I'm saying if you need the ownership, you go own that or whatever, and then you know everybody can participate. Oh, there's racism at the grocery store. Okay, well, create your own grocery store, and everybody has to come shop with you. You know, that's what I mean by own that system. Not necessarily saying be separate. Own the system.
No, I got what you're saying. That's perfect explanation. I like the clarification. So the way that you and correct me if I'm wrong, it seemed as though you were doing your thing. You were doing a great job. You were working hard in your local community to create change. And what show was it that put you on? And I don't know how people found out or if you actually presented yourself as a conservative in terms of politics. How did you end up on the Roland Martin show? And was that kind of the first thing that kind of started making people realize who you were?
Yeah, that was kind of like the biggest pop that I ever got from Roland's show. I'm not sure. I mean, I have conservative in my bio, but I'm not sure why he tagged me in a tweet about voter suppression. He shared one of my previous tweets and called me an idiot because I said that Black people we should start going to do for self in our communities, and we're not stupid, and we can go make something happen. And he shared it, tweet, and called me an idiot, and I was. I used to watch, some of his commentary or whatever. Granted, I don't like everything he says, but I used to watch his commentary. He used to say something sometimes. But yeah, he shared my tweet. I'm an idiot, so I responded, but I was like, I'll just unfollow. But he tagged me in another tweet about voter suppression months later, and I was like, this ain't even my area. Like, I don't even dig into this. What's the problem? So, but he took another friend of mine named Jalen. He's a Republican, but he said the tweet said Georgia Republicans won't say anything about this voter suppression that's going on or something like that. I was like, well, for one, I'm not a Republican. I'm independent. But why are you tagging me in this or whatever like that? So my friend was like, I bet he won't bring us on the show. I said, nah, because he's gonna act like a female like he does on every other show. And he was like, well, y'all bring your asses on the show. I was like, okay. So I came on. Jalen wasn't able to come because he's the press secretary for Byron Donalds in Florida, so he couldn't do it because of his job. But I came on and I simply said over and over again, I'm like, this is not my fight. If there is voter suppression in that area, there are people that are fighting, for that. But I work with children, and I said I believe we should do for self in our communities. He's like, well, what do you mean by do for self? He didn't vet me before I came on the show. He thought I was about to give him some theory, but I didn't give any theory. I gave actual real-world examples of what we've done to fix our community. People like that are intimidated by what I'm doing because they've used their platform since before I was born to tell Black people that what all their problems are, and people pay them to tell them what their issues are. So that was kind of a issue for me because I'm just like, you lived your whole life telling Black people what they can't do, and now I'm coming to show Black people what they can do. And what was so beautiful was almost the whole Black community was behind what I said. They thrashed him on every social media site. He was thrashed on LinkedIn. He was thrashed on YouTube. He was thrashed on Instagram, TikTok. Everybody destroyed him for bringing me on the show and not acknowledging the work that I was doing because he would never say good job. He kept trying to argue the whole time. He lost like thousands of followers from that interview. And usually anytime he brings a conservative on, he always thrashes them. And I was the first one to go in there and go blow for blow and win. And people loved it. And like what's so beautiful about ever since that happened is our followership is so diverse. Like so many people like from many different communities love our program. Black, white, Hispanic. I've been invited on so many left-wing platforms, and they're asking the question. Now, they're like, well, what is conservatism? What do you mean? What is that? Because you seem like you love the Black community and things like that. I'm like, I know we do love the Black community, and you are actually doing work. Once I started explaining what conservatism means to me, then they're just like, oh, I understand that. Yeah, I believe that too. I'm like, I know you because you don't believe in half that stuff that's happening right now in the White House, do you? They're like, no. I'm like, exactly. Stop watching TV. So, but it's opening people's minds now. But that's what I love to see because people see work. People can get behind something and they see work. Another reason people, the Black community kind of doesn't get behind many Black conservatives is because of the constant down talking. When instead of down talking all the time, you could be doing some work about the community and what you're talking about. Because you can't be in the community and talking about the community the entire time. You're not out there trying to change what you're talking about. So that people don't like that. It rubs them the wrong way. But I don't make any commentary. I just do work. Only commentary I make is on platforms like this. But I don't make any commentary. I don't even do any political videos, none of that stuff. I just do work. Right. And that's what people are drawn to.
Action over awareness. I'm gonna play just because you were cutting out a little bit, so I want to play a couple minutes of that video with Roland. And then I got 1 or 2 more questions, and we'll go ahead and wrap it up. So I'm going to play about 3 minutes of this video, about 2 minutes of this video that I found that was kind of where you really got into it real good, and you kind of just said what you explained what do for self is. So I'm going to go ahead and play this.
Okay. All right.
So define do for self.
When I say do for self, you shared one of my tweets, my videos, and I was actually a big fan of yours, but you shared one of my tweets when I said black people need to stop begging the government and go and do for self out in our communities. You shared the video and called me an idiot. I didn't see anything idiotic about that statement at all.
So when you say do for self, like what? Explain that.
Okay, for example, here in Albany, Georgia, we complain about our school systems a lot. Many of our young men can't read. They have very horrible literacy rates. We don't have any rehab programs here for juvenile offenders. What I decided to do, I started a program 2 years ago, decided to do for self, and I started taking children into my home. I started taking custody of kids from juvenile court, and I started molding them and training them and teaching them skilled trades, etc. Now I'm 21 years old. I just purchased a school here in Albany, Georgia, to combat us being in the government-funded schools that are not teaching our children what they need to learn. So that's what I mean by do for self, simply getting up and going out and do it.
So
I beat the stereotype that I'm young, black, in America, and I can't do anything because somebody's holding me down. Absolutely not.
So a question.
Teenagers went and go ahead. Me and some teenagers went and bought a school, and we just bought a school bus simply from going out and doing work. We decided to go fix our own communities. I'm not expecting anything from no politician. I'm not expecting nothing from Donald Trump, Joe Biden, or nobody. We're gonna go do it for ourselves, and that's what I believe we need to be doing. I can vote, sure, but nothing's gonna change in our community.
So you went to the juvenile court system. Is that not government?
Absolutely.
So when you say purchased a school, and this school is going to be what? Private school, charter school? What kind of school is it going to be?
No, it will be independently owned. This will not be funded by the government.
No, that's why I asked you. So it's going to be a private school?
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be a boarding school.
A boarding school. And then for the folks to be able to afford to send their kids to the boarding school, what kind of mechanisms are they using in Georgia? Their own funds? Are they using school vouchers? What are they using?
I can't hear you. Say that again for me.
I said, what mechanism are they using to send their kids there to pay for the school? Their own money, or are they utilizing vouchers from the Georgia government?
Absolutely. So for our school, we're financed completely by donors. We have many donors that have given yearly endowments to our school that will be able to pay for these students to come to our school for free. Many people believe in our mission, and we're making sure that young black men, where we live, where we don't have any rehab programs for juvenile offenders to even get out of jail and stay out.
I love that. His face was like, oh. he was like trying to be like, but you're going to have the government do something. You're going to have somebody help. No, you're literally doing for self.
Right,
That was his face was so defeated there. I loved it. That's great.
Yeah, it's all good, you know.
All right, so the things that I want to end on a little bit is, like, you're a perfect example, and I'm assuming, have you seen the documentary Uncle Tom?
I saw it I think a little while back, but they have a #2 coming out, and they actually came and filmed like me for like 2 days in Albany. Awesome. So I'll be in the next Uncle Tom documentary. Like, they came and like went with me to the barbershop, went to some of my old food stops, went to my hometown where I grew up at, and they came to the whole 9. But yeah, I'll be on the next one.
Oh, that is awesome. I didn't know that. That's great. The reason I bring that up, and I'm sure the second one will be the same way, is we're so busy in our schools, our government-funded schools across the country, playing things like critical race theory and things like 1619 and all the negatives of our history, which there are 100%. But we also, and psychologically, you kind of talked about this earlier, if you're a young black man and all you see is how bad you've been, destroyed over American history, how are you gonna actually do for self until you see people like you or little things here and there? Why not play the Uncle Toms also as a part of the education system? If you're gonna play all the other stuff, show the positives, show what can be done by people actually achieving. Do you think that's important?
But see, I tell people, actual racists, like liberals who put these curriculums together, will not show black children successful black people. They'll show us all the slaughtering that happened to us and all the beat downs we got and all the 1619s and all the slaveries. They won't show us the Booker T. Washingtons. They won't show us the Malcolms. They won't go show us all the rich black people, and they won't show us none of that because they want us to always be defeated. We can never top you. We can never be on top of you. They're going to show young black men or young black people, period, that you will never beat white people. That's what they're showing them. They will never show them success. So when I come here and show these children possible, absolutely they are intimidated. So I tell them actual white races create these curriculums that don't show black children actual black success. They never want to see it. And so when they grow up, all they're used to is showing black plight. That's why we get so excited every time something happens bad to us, even though excited doesn't seem like a good word, but that's what it is. We get a jolt when something bad happens to us. Like, oh, yes, white people did something bad. Yes, let us go and show energy towards that, because that's all you've been shown. You've never been told to give energy to something positive. You've never been told to give some good energy to something good happening in the black community, because it's not feeding what you've been told your whole life. So when you get somebody that's coming to show young black children possible, I mean, they don't like it. Even with trying to create a new school, of course they're not going to like the new school, because we're teaching these boys to go take back their communities and go protect their women and children and go do for self. They don't want to show those things anymore. That's why I believe the public school system is absolutely systemically racist, because of that reason. Not because of, oh, they're holding black children down on purpose. No, they're not teaching black children, and not even just black children. The children in general at school are being taught wrong. So I think it's systemically wrong. The public school system needs to be eradicated and redone. Even with diagnosing all these children with these made-up diseases that are not real, because a disease is something you can get by a blood or a pee test. You can't diagnose these diseases because a little boy can't sit down in class. None of my boys can sit down because they want to go run. They kids, So all these made-up diseases and putting these kids on all this medicine. Oh yeah, that's real racism right there. That's systemic racism. Not none of this crap y'all talk about on TV. So the real systemic racism is you need to get rid of this doggone system in general. But I'm gonna rant.
No, I loved it. That was great. But yeah, and I look at people, and I used to be a big fan of, Oprah back when she was younger, and I look at her now, and it's like, this is a woman that's a billionaire telling black people that they can't do something, and I'm like, why is she not saying, this is how I did it, instead of right. You can't? Like, to me, it's mind-boggling, and like you said, it's the school system that's not just oppressing black kids, it's oppressing these white kids to the point where there's this kind of white guilt that instead of people, I'm going to say like me, that are 13, 14 years old looking at their black friends saying, bro, you can do that. You can do whatever you want. Instead, they're going like, man, you've had it so hard. Like,
yep. Or it creates a white superiority complex for some of the white children, because they just like, oh, when they say I'm a white, that means I'm boss. Not that I'm just a white as a color. It means I'm boss now, because all we've ever done was take you guys over. You're not able to go do anything above me. And that's, again, that is killing it's messing up all of our children in general. So people are, some of the black community is like, so are you going to accept white children too? I'm like, yeah, because they need to be taught too. I'm like, this is the thing. Because they're like, yo, why are you taking white children? I'm like, I got to take them because they need to be taught too. I'm like, if I don't teach them the truth as well, we still got to coexist whether you like it or not. We all have to coexist. So yeah, I got to teach Spanish children. I got to teach Asian children. I got to teach white children. I got to teach black children. I got to teach all of them the actual truth. So that way we all can coexist as a unit.
Yeah. And psychologically, if you, I, as a motivational speaker and talking to people about overcoming failure and also being a student of all these motivational speakers, I don't understand. There's not a single one that will tell you that a kind of victim mentality or a negative outlook and feeling as though you can't do something, people telling you that you can't do something. There's not a single motivational speaker that's going to tell you that's the way to overcome. And I'm sorry. No matter how hard you slice it, there will never be 40 acres and a mule, no matter how democratic our government is. That's not going to happen ever. You're going to be waiting for Superman forever, so you have to find a way to do. And the way that we're...
take it.
Just go take it. Psychologically, it's such a flawed way that we are teaching our children. Anyway, so I'm going to wrap up. I want to ask, what are your future plans? What is your goals for the next year or 2 years? What do you got going on with X for Boys? What's your plans? I don't know if you have political plans or just school plans. What is your plans?
Oh, no political plans. I don't plan on running for any offices or anything like that ever. However, we will be planning to open a school this fall. We'll be building the 2 houses for the summertime. There will be a documentary over the summer with them doing the 2 houses. So, but of course, people will still get a lot of content while they're building their houses over the summer. But we'll be releasing our first documentary after the summertime. So the school will be opening for instruction, but we won't be doing boarding until next year because we have to get their sleeping quarters together, et cetera. We have many people trying to come help us renovate the school property, et cetera. So have all those things coming up. We have 2 other locations in Albany that are up for demolition, 2 other school locations that the school system has. But we're planning to purchase those 2 locations as well if they're not demolished within 6 to 12 months. So that's where we are with that. But right now, that's kind of like what's going on for like the next year or 2. And who knows what'll pop up in my head in between time. I mean, we have to clear the land. 40 acres, not the entire 40 acres. We'll be clearing some of it for certain things, but most of it we'll be using for wilderness training and firearms training. But right now, that's kind of where we are. And maybe in the next year or 2, we'll see what happens because I don't know what God may put in my mind in the next year or 2. I might have to go to the White House and go talk to Joe Biden about something. So, who knows?
or Kamala, who knows, will be in there in a year or 2. We don't know.
Right.
The last thing I want to say, I don't know if Suni and you talked about Cash, but Cash was kind of the inspiration on how we started growing our following with Be the Change, and he had a whole concept called Streetlights Unity Movement, which was creating a community center that legitimately is exactly your thought process. And I don't know if you know the background, but right now he is incarcerated for crimes back when he was in gangs when he was younger. But I can't wait for him to come out. And you guys will be a match made in heaven to create positive change, and it happens so simply. But I'm looking forward to Cash getting out, whether it's the full 4 years that he has to serve, or if we can get a sentence shortened to a year or 2. But you guys together would be a absolute powerhouse of change, and I look forward to that.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
The last thing I want to say is you remind me of one story, and I think some of our followers know this. So with Be the Change, we had when I started out, I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, I want to incite change in people. I'm a professional speaker. What can I do to do this? So I started creating these T-shirts, and it's they just said Be the Change across. Like this one's Unite, Don't Fight. But I had the Be the Change shirts, and there was a bunch of errors. And just like you lost a job. You ended up, you're at a building where you had a spelling contest, a spelling bee that you lost, and it's like all these pieces were coming together. So I had these T-shirts that were misprinted, right? There's about 50 of them, and they're like, do you want me to throw them out? And I was like, it's such a waste of good T-shirts. So I gave them to Goodwill. I spent $1 per T-shirt, and I gave them to Goodwill. And about 5-6 months later, I see, my girlfriend at the time sees a guy wearing my shirt. And at the time, like, we hadn't sold them to too many people. So I knew pretty much everybody that had bought the shirt. So this guy comes over, and he was a Hispanic guy, and my girlfriend calls him and was like, hey, where'd you get that shirt? And he's like, I got it at the Goodwill. And he tells her, and she goes, that's my boyfriend's, company. And he goes, oh man, is that Michael Russo guy? And she's like, close enough. Yeah, that works. And he goes, I looked up the tag, and I looked it up online. I looked up the company, and I said, you know what? This is silly. I have such an opportunity to create real change. And he started a community. He started a community group of a bunch of young boys from his block in a very bad part of Dallas. And they started doing, after school, it was an after-school club. They'd mow lawns for the elderly. They would fix little things on cars. And it literally reminds me of a small version of your story. And it literally is that simple, King Randall. It's
really, absolutely.
It's so simple. And it was in that moment that I'm like, I'm on the right path. And then hearing your story and seeing how big you're taking it and how much bigger you're going to make it, it inspires, I'm sure, the people that watch, the people that follow us. It inspires me to continue to do what I'm doing. And that was my final word, because I want to thank you for what you do, and thank you for the inspiration on everything you do. So,
absolutely, I definitely appreciate you. Yes, sir.
Well, excellent. If anybody wants to follow you, they can go to thexforboys.org. What's your other social media handles?
All my social media handles are New Emerging King on every last social media platform: Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook. New Emerging King.
New Emerging King on all of them. I follow him on Instagram. If anybody needs to reach out or find it, go ahead and do that there. You guys will be able to hear this on our platform later for our podcast. Just go to #BeTheChange.com/podcast, and that'll be up probably in about 2 or 3 days. Aside from that, guys, anything bought on our store from now until tomorrow, the proceeds will be going to the X for Boys Foundation, X for Boys organization, whatever you want to call it. So go ahead and head over there, get some fun stuff, and King Randall, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate you. If you want to stick around backstage, I'll meet you there for a couple minutes, or if you got to go, feel free. Aside from that, thank you so much for being on the show.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
No problem. Take it easy, brother.